This is what we like to call in the business a massive victory Monday for the New York Jets and New York Jet fans in what might just be the best win of the Robert Saleh era. Let's roll, baby. Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans. Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Connor Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby. For me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. Oh, yes, baby. Oh, yes. The New York Jets and their fans are enjoying a juicy victory Monday. Two undefeated teams entered the octagon yesterday. 0 left because the Jets took care of business. 1972 Dolphins popped the bubbly. And also pop the bubbly to our first guest here on Boy Green Daily this week. It is Mo gosh darn Moten of Bleacher Report, and he graces us with his presence. Good morning, Mo.
Good morning, Paul Green. Boy Green, I should say.
That's okay. Mr. Green, clean green, whatever comes out of your pie hole, you can call me whatever the hell you'd like to, Mr. Moten. The Jets just took out the gosh darn Philadelphia Eagles that a lot of people would say was arguably the or one of the best teams in football.
Absolutely. I would say it was one of the two big upsets on Sunday. Obviously, both undefeated teams going down, the Jets being responsible for one of those losses for those undefeated teams. So congrats to you and Jets fans out there and the people who actually picked the Jets, because I can't find anyone who actually picked the Jets to win that football game, including myself. Your top two cornerbacks down, not playing. Tony Adams stepping up. Bryce Hall stepping up. Breece Hall getting the touchdown to put the Jets in the lead. Congrats to Jets fans out there.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. You don't have to look far, my friend. Hello, my name is Paul Weston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Great, and I put the stamp of approval on this one on our game day preview earlier yesterday, but there's no reason to pat myself on the back. Actually, there is. Yeah, there we go. Yep. Very nice. Of course. So let me ask you, Mo. Again, the Jets are heading into their bye week this week, so only one more day of that Eagles logo up there, but it sure looks nice. But with that being said, they're 3-3 heading into the bye week. And actually, quite frankly, the narrative before the season was with Aaron Rodgers. Man, you're really hoping to get be 3-3. So the fact they're able to accomplish that without the services of Aaron Rodgers on the football field is pretty impressive. But at 3-3, there's a lot of season to play. But I ask you this, playoffs? Jets?
Hey, it's not out of the realm. I remind people that let's remember there are now 7 playoff teams in each conference. It's not like it's 6-6 as it used to be. So a couple of years they changed that format. So I would say, yeah, the Jets have definitely a chance. The thing I will say about their schedule is, I believe you pointed this out on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the next 3 games are pretty winnable games. I know one of those games are against the Raiders, a team I cover.
Sorry.
So Raiders fans are actually looking at the Jets the same way. It's pretty interesting, even though the Raiders have some what they will call, some people will call, uninspiring wins. I don't think any wins are uninspiring. A win is a win, however you can get it a WCW. So that'll be interesting when the Jets do play the Raiders. But sticking to the Jets, I think if they can come out of their next 3 games, I say 2-1, it looks pretty good. I know they still have 2 games against the Dolphins. I understand that they have that, have another game against the Bills in Buffalo. But if you can, the way I described it in my power rankings that will drop on Tuesday is that the Jets their roster, even without Aaron Rodgers, their roster is still good enough to keep games close. And if the Jets are close and they stay within striking distance, they can pull off some wins and upsets.
So I don't want you to give up the scoop, but I mean, you can just kind of confirm the Jets are the number 1 team in the power rankings, obviously, correct?
I wouldn't say that. I'll say that I had them a little higher than my colleagues simply because I still believe in that defense. I know a lot of people want to say the defense isn't as good as it was last year, but I think we saw yesterday on Sunday that it could still have moments where it could be just as good, if not better, even without key players. Again, Sauce Gardner not playing, DJ Reed not playing, still stepped up against the Eagles. I know A.J. Brown went off, but it wasn't enough. They were able to force some turnovers, 3 interceptions for Jalen Hurts, and a fumble recovery. I see Quinnen Williams getting interceptions. It was funny how Sauce Gardner said Quinnen has more interceptions than he does this season. But that defense can really get after it, and you have to still respect the defense of the Robert Saleh.
Yeah, the Jets were down ultimately 4 of their top 6 corners in this game. And again, playing guys like Craig James, Tay Haynes, who's been on the team for 3 weeks. They were throwing them all out there. A lot of people said, oh, boy, you have that against Jalen Hurts. He's going crazy. And the Jets defense continues to make plays. So also at this interesting mark of 3-3, the NFL trade deadline is 2 weeks away. I believe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we have that right around the corner. And Jet fans are thinking, let's buy. Let's open up the wallet. Let's do a little shopping. So with that in mind, I mean, Mo, the one we brought up a bunch of months ago was Davante Adams. And I think Jet fans are a little more in that department because Garrett Wilson's spectacular, of course. But we've had kind of a lot of slip-ups beyond him. Allen Lazard had some rough moments yesterday. Randall Cobb is, well, Randall Cobb. And Mecole Hardman, for some reason, that fit hasn't happened. So there's been a lot of questions beyond Garrett Wilson. So people are drooling. I guess I got to get a update live from Mo Moton on the Davante Adams sweepstakes. Any update, Mo?
I'll break it down like this, Boy Green. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But remember when I was on not too long ago and I said it was 0.5 chance, or I think I gave a 0.0 or something like that.
Very low.
Chance. That hasn't changed.
I see. Okay.
The Raiders and the Jets, same record. 3-3, 3-3, and there's hope that the Raiders can actually go on a bit of a run. There was a report that came out that Josh McDaniels may be coaching for his job if the Raiders don't start rattling off wins. Okay. So there is an incentive to keep Davante Adams and keep things rolling after winning back-to-back games in Vegas. So I don't see Davante Adams moving. He's also publicly said, "Look, I'm all in on the Raiders." A report came out and said the Raiders are not interested in moving him. Now, of course, you don't want to listen to those reports because sometimes you hear those reports and the player gets moved anyway. But this is Davante Adams. It's totally different ball game when you're talking about arguably the top wide receiver in the game. No disrespect to Justin Jefferson. So sure. I don't see Davante Adams being moved. But there is a consolation prize. If you are interested in another slot receiver, because I know Randall Cobb is Randall Cobb. I know he had a 2-point conversion yesterday. It's cute, great. Yeah. But we all know Randall Cobb was there for Aaron Rodgers' comfort, right?
Yeah.
How about I can interest you in a Hunter Renfrow, a slot machine? If you're interested in a slot wide receiver, some guy who's, reliable on third downs, on crucial downs. Yeah. If you're interested in a Hunter Renfrow, I think that's doable. A report came out over this past week. Diana Rossini of The Athletic, shout out to her. She said that the Raiders are trying to move Hunter Renfrow simply because they're not using him. They acquired Jacoby Myers. I'm sure you're familiar with Jacoby from his Patriot days. And he is playing very well with the Raiders right now as the number 2 behind Davante Adams. And Hunter Renfrow is just not getting the targets. It's not that he's not playing well. It's just that he can't catch targets that he's not getting. So I think the Raiders are going to move him and give him a chance to produce somewhere else as they move on with Jacoby Myers. So if you're interested, if the Jets are interested in Hunter Renfrow, a reliable third down guy, we call him Third and Renfrow, he is definitely up for grabs.
That's funny. It's like I went to a restaurant this week, and I went there, and it's like I say, I'm a Mountain Dew guy. I'm like, hey, I'll take a Mountain Dew. They're like, well, we don't have that, but we do have Mountain Lightning. And I'm like, okay, so do you just want to punch me in the face? Neither of those two things have anything to do. I go to the Raiders gift shop. I'm like, yeah, I'll take a Davante Adams. They're like, we got a Hunter Renfrow. I'm like, well, so you have nothing for me. That's what you have. You have absolutely nothing for me. Excellent. Well, that's fine. I appreciate your Hunter Renfrow and raise you. Carl Lawson, maybe. Mecole Hardman. We're kind of in the clearance rack. I can kind of offer you, see what we've got in there. But Mo, there are 2 reasons why we're on the show. Obviously, you're spectacular and fantastic, so we don't really need any reason for that. But number 2 is you bring a national perspective. You do have your Raiders ties and coverage, but you do bring a national perspective. So I figured that my fishing rod in the water of Davante Adams was going to come up a little bit short. But who are guys that could be available? I know you and some of your colleagues do that like trade deadline week to week check in to see where guys are moving that could potentially, up and down these imaginary kind of trade power rankings and guys that could be moved based on records. Like, a team off the top of my head, just because I was tweeting about it last night, the Patriots are 1-5. So a team that could have a different perception. And that's just a random example, or other teams that are doing well that you weren't expecting. So are there names that are floating out there in the universe on the trade block for any team, quite frankly, that are of interesting names of note?
I'll say this, and I know Jets fans will cringe at this, but the Denver Broncos are definitely going to be sellers at the trade deadline. I could definitely see them moving Jerry Jeudy and or Cortland Sutton. Let's remember they drafted a wide receiver in the second round this year, and Mims. Brandon Johnson, who came out of nowhere, he's contributing with Denver. I get there's bad blood there, but if they could put that aside and if you want a wide receiver, I think Cortland Sutton could be had. Jerry Jeudy had a rough game on Thursday night. Had a back and forth with Steve Smith. We called him a third-tier wide receiver.
Spicy.
But I definitely think Denver they're gonna be sellers. I could see Ryan Tannehill being moved. I wrote that in my power rankings. If a team is looking for a quarterback, not saying the Jets are looking at Ryan Tannehill. I know his name popped up, but I could see him moving. I know his contract is gross. But you know how it works with these trades. Teams work out deals where they can eat some of the salary cap. The Titans, let's not kid ourselves with the Titans. They're headed for a rebuild. That team is 2-4. Ryan Tannehill has been regressing since 2021 when his offensive coordinator Arthur Smith went to Atlanta. They're definitely sellers. The Minnesota Vikings. I know Kirk Cousins said he wasn't going to waive his no trade clause, but there were reports that KJ Osborne, their wide receiver, who contributed this past Sunday, could be on the block. Danielle Hunter, who's a pass rusher. I know the Jets don't need pass rushers. They have a plethora of pass rushers. I actually came on this show to say, hey, give the Raiders Carl Lawson. A Carl Lawson for Hunter Renfrow switch would be great. But I could see the Vikings, even though they beat the Chicago Bears on Sunday, also being sellers because that's another team that's headed for a bit of a rebuild, regardless of what happens with Kirk Cousins.
Well, so I'm kind of curious. You've said, hey, our wide receiver shop is closed unless you want Hunter Renfrow. What about the Broncos shop? And you show me a couple. You're that one. The woman on Wheel of Fortune. How about this? And I'm like, ooh, okay. Do tell. Give me more details. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. What's the value for those guys? What do you think it would require to get one of those guys? Considering where the Broncos are at, and I don't know if desperation's the right word, but maybe they'll just kind of take, I don't want to say anything like a seventh, but just in general, like what would it take to say for them to go, all right, we'll move one of these guys?
Now, in the offseason, a report came out from 9 News in Denver saying that Cortland Sutton could be moved for a second and Jerry Jeudy would be moved for a first. I'm assuming those values came down considerably now that the Broncos have crashed and burned. Now at 1-5, I would assume that you could get Cortland Sutton for a third or a fourth round pick. Okay. I would assume Jerry Judy's value is down to a second or a third simply because Jerry Jeudy is, I would say, has a higher ceiling. Cortland Sutton's been around the league, just hasn't produced a whole ton because he's, the Denver Broncos quarterback situation has been atrocious. But I'm sure if he gets a decent quarterback, he can produce at a level. But the value is going to drop definitely at this point in the offseason because people understand that they're not going to be buyers at the deadline, not with their record. And I would think that they would want to move some of those pieces to get draft capital for 2024. So, again, I would say third or fourth rounder for Cortland Sutton, second or third rounder for Jerry Jeudy.
All right, let's go reverse order here. Again, we're speaking with Mo Gashdarn. Mo at Bleacher Report columnist. You can read the details. It's right there for you guys. Make sure you follow him on all social media portals. He'd appreciate it. I'm curious. There's a few Jet guys. You mentioned Diana Rossini. She also, in her kind of notebook spilling on the table of guts, a couple of Jets players that could be moved ahead of the deadline. I want to go through each of them. She mentioned Dalvin Cook, and she's not the only one. Rich Cimini of ESPN has also mentioned that the Jets are curious, or other teams rather are curious about the availability of Dalvin Cook. He's fallen out of favor, isn't getting a lot of reps, obviously hasn't worked out here, but people still think there's some gas left in the tank. First off, what do you think his value is from your opinion? And secondly, are there natural team fits that jump out in your mind that someone could be potentially interested in Dalvin Cook?
Ooh, Dalvin Cook. I'm sure his value has dropped. I understand there was a lot of buzz around him in the offseason, but as you said, Breece Hall is kind of taking over that backfield, and he is a special player again, coming off that torn ACL. and playing the way he's playing. But Dalvin Cook's his value has to be, it's a number one, it's the running back position.
Yes.
Number two, he hasn't looked great. It has to be a fourth or a fifth round pick. It has to be. And I can't even pinpoint a team that would want to trade for a running back at this point, simply because, again, the running back position has been devalued, and Dalvin Cook hasn't produced much of the Jets uniform. So if the Jets trade him, I could see them trading him for peanuts to a contending team that may have a running back issue. They're not going to trade him within the division. But you look at a team like the Bills, and I'm not saying the Bills would acquire him from the Jets, but you look at a team like the Bills that just lost a running back, Damian Harris,
scary
for him, and a scary injury. If there is an injury that happens, I would say within the next couple of weeks, look for that team to possibly acquire Dalvin Cook at a low price.
Yeah, and to your point, it could be we've seen a couple of these kind of deals, obviously that like Randy Gregory situation stuff where you're swapping late round picks, and it could be to that level. We'll keep an eye on that. Another guy looks like he could be moved, Mecole Hardman. Diana Rossini mentioned, and I thought this was the most obvious to me when these trade winds have started to blow. A return back to the Chiefs, return to sender, slap that on the ass cheek, and whoop. Send him right back over where he came from. And again, something similar late. Is that something that revs your engine, makes sense with the Chiefs wide receivers that really haven't been popping? Or is there a different team for this speedster who has talent, but for some reason can't get on the field with the Jets?
The Chiefs wide receiver core needs help. I think the Chiefs are going to be buyers at the trade deadline for a wide receiver because outside, Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore hasn't popped the way he should. I'm sure they do like Rashee Rice, and I also like Rashee Rice, their second rounder this year. But they need a little more consistency. Why not get a guy who knows the system? J.C. Jackson went back to New England from the Los Angeles Chargers. They sent him back. He was a return to sender player. So why not the Chiefs and the Jets make a swap? Because, as you said, Mecole Hardman just hasn't worked out in New York. And the Chiefs, in my opinion, still need some help. Because while the Chiefs have a great record right now with only one loss, that offense still isn't what we're used to seeing. And I think it needs another wide receiver with some speed.
Again, I am Will Smith in the movie Hitch. I am trying to make matchmaking happen. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make connections, and everyone loves a good reunion story. The sequel. They're back together. Hype is back on the train. Like, people are into that sort of thing, so that's always possible. Another one, you mentioned earlier, Carl Lawson. Again, the winds continue to blow that apparently, I think it was from Diana Rossini, where Joe Douglas is, open to moving him. And who knows how much is left in the tank? You just kind of falling down the depth chart, and because of all the Jets pass rushers and them getting opportunities while Carl's out, it's hard for him to work himself back up to the top. So maybe there's still some talent and skill there, and the contract's interesting with how it would work out between the Jets and somebody else. Everyone needs pass rushers. I imagine he may be a valuable commodity ahead of the deadline.
Absolutely, and I'll be the first to step in line and say send him to Vegas. The Raiders need help with Max Crosby. They haven't. Chandler Jones went AWOL. They released him. He had some weird, odd behavior on social media, so they had to let him go. He's getting professional help. Hope he's well soon.
Of course.
Malcolm Kuntz, their third round pick from a few years ago in 2021. He's been nicked up, but he hasn't been as consistent, not reliable on a consistent basis, on a down-to-down basis. And then you have, Tyree Wilson, who's their first round pick, who hasn't popped. He had foot surgery. And then it's a lot for a rookie who's missed a lot of training camp, allowed the offseason to produce in his first year when he's missed so much of the offseason program. So I wasn't expecting a lot from Tyree Wilson. He still needs time to get himself under him, get his legs under him as a first-year pro. And the Raiders, again, really need someone opposite Max Crosby. And I think Carl Lawson would fit the bill, especially at a low price, because that report from Dan Rossini said that the Raiders are looking for a pass rusher, but they don't want to give up too much. And I would assume that Carl Lawson isn't going to cost a first or second round pick looking at his numbers this year. Hasn't played more than 30% of the snaps in any of the games. He was inactive not too long ago. So it's clear that the Jets have pivoted away from him. You got Jermaine Johnson, the second there. You got Bryce Huff contributing. They drafted Will McDowell the fourth in the first round of this year's draft. Why not send Carl Lawson over to Vegas where he can start again and be a contributor for the Raiders?
All right, let me put the foot up on the desk. Okay, here we go. All right, give me some offers. What do we got? What do we got for Carl? Come on, let's say you gave me the Renfro one. What else do you got in the shop? Come on, give me something. Give me an offer.
If the Jets are looking for some draft capital, Raiders could send over some draft capital.
Like what? Come on, throw it out there. What do we got?
You looking for a third round pick, fourth.
Sign me up right now. Boom. Done.
Hey, like you said, you can never have too many pass rushes in the Raiders right now in a position where their defense is playing very well. The offense, is sputtering. Stinks is probably the word a lot of fans would use. And they want to run Josh McDaniels out of town, and I understand that. But the defense is playing at the highest level I can remember in a very long time. And if they can get a pass rusher, it would kind of complete it. I'm not saying it'll be top 10, but it could be a top 12 defense if they can get another pass rusher opposite Max Crosby. So I'd be willing to go as high as a 3rd round pick. I know you're probably not too hot on Hunter Renfrow, but let's say the Raiders don't have a lot of, I would say, players that you'd probably swap 1 for 1. Now, Diana Rossini said the Raiders would prefer a player for player swap. But I think if you're putting up a pass rusher that had decent numbers last year, I think they'd be willing to bend a little bit and give up a day 2 pick.
All right, juicy. All right, a couple of quickies before we get you out of here. Again, this national perspective, I'm sure, is interesting to all of our fans who are commenting in right now, so we appreciate all the support, everybody. We'll start off with Zach Wilson, who it did not look ideal early, and then over the last, I'll batch it 3 weeks since that Chiefs game where, and speaking of national perspective, where he earned a lot of street cred in the, with that performance. Over the last 3 weeks, it seemed he's turned a leaf. Again, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's done things that he's never done before, and he looks competent in a lot of ways. What has been your perspective of Zach Wilson from what you've seen from your chair?
It's funny because after that Chiefs game, I said, okay, you got Denver coming up after. He could put together back-to-back, solid performances. My colleagues weren't so high on Zach Wilson. There was a moment where I said maybe he's finally growing up. And I think maybe having Aaron Rodgers there in his ear, in his headset, could also be helping him. And he, we could see him grow up during the season. Maybe we should give Zach Wilson a chance. Because I know after Aaron Rodgers went down, I was like, Jets have to go out and get a veteran quarterback. They have to sign Carson Wentz. They can't roll with Zach Wilson. But to Robert Saleh's credit, he stuck with Zach Wilson. I know there's been some whispers about frustration with it, but I think that once you see small glimpses of a player you drafted very high, you're encouraged by that. And I would say within the bye week, maybe he tweaks some things, maybe things progress for him coming out of the bye. As I said, there's a winnable schedule coming out of it. Maybe he shows some signs. From my perspective, I feel like he's made some strides. Again, it's not enough to make you feel confident in the Jets offense because, as you said, didn't play well against the Eagles, but the Eagles defense is a fierce defense. The Jets offensive line is what it is. We all know about the Eagles front 7. But I would like to see Zach Wilson continue to make strides against lesser defenses. I believe you have the Chargers coming up soon. The Chargers defense, we all know, is not as good as what is advertised to be. As I said, they let go of J.C. Jackson not too long ago, sent them back to New England. And that, to me, the Chargers are a poorly coached team with Brandon Staley being their head coach. So I think if you can get more out of Zach Wilson, I think it can help build his confidence. Again, I'm not saying he's going to throw for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, but if he could be at least serviceable, and I said this last year, if Zach Wilson was at least serviceable, the Jets make the playoffs last year, and I believe the same holds this year.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know why I said the Zach Wilson question. It might not matter. Aaron Rodgers coming out of the bye, baby. It sounds like he's going to be good to go. On the field, no crutches thrown around. He had surgery a friggin' month ago. How is that even possible? I was seeing him out there like, what? Is he playing today? Do we need to check the info? What the hell's happening? So do you think he's coming? Okay, maybe not after the bye. Okay. I'll back up a little.
Yeah.
But like Connor Hughes of SNY, I saw this late last night going through everything. It was crazy win. And then we have Lee Van jumping in on the YouTube Super Chat. Thanks, Boy Green and Mo. I can't sleep after that win. What sleep? I didn't sleep. But either way, appreciate it, Lee Van. Thanks for jumping in there. But I'm going to be honest, Mo, it sure seems like there is this palpable energy that Aaron Rodgers could make a return. And like I said, Connor Hughes of SNY did a TV piece last night, and his TV hit, he said, I believe, I don't have the direct quote, but basically, I believe Aaron Rodgers coming back this season. And no, I'm not talking about the playoffs. I'm talking about the regular season. I think he was indicating the end of the regular season. But even still, that would be wild. Are you buying that? Are you selling that? Jet fans are on the edge of their seat, Mel.
You know what? I totally respect Connor Rodgers. He's a former Bleacher Report guy. And when Connor Hughes. Let me clarify. Yeah. He's the SNY guy. SNY guy. Okay. Yeah. Connor Hughes. There you go. Connor Hughes, well-respected reporter. I also follow him on X, formerly known as Twitter. Yeah. So when he speaks, also Either Connor speaks.
Yeah, a double Connor. It's phenomenal.
I listen, but I will say this. I remember when Aaron Rodgers first got hurt, and there was talk that, possibly if the Jets are in the playoff mix, that they can, maybe he could come back, maybe play at the end of the season. I will say it's kind of, with his age, I'm a little skeptical, but I'm not gonna count him out. Let's say if the Jets are in the playoff mix, week 17, week 18, I wouldn't rule it out. If Aaron Rodgers can get on the field, I'm sure he would try his best. And at this point in his career, what do you have to lose other than maybe another, a year or two off your career? If you can help the Jets get to the playoffs and pull a Willis Reed Knicks type moment and come out of the tunnel and kind of hobble out to the field, throw a couple of touchdown passes and get your team into the playoffs, why not? I'm not one to count Aaron Rodgers out, but I would say it's a very tough sell simply because let's remember he did rupture his Achilles, it was basically not too long ago. I understand he's off crutches and all of that, but it's different when you're playing an actual football game and you have 250 to 300-pound men trying to crush your body on every down. So I would say be careful with Aaron Rodgers, especially if you want him back next season at full health. Be very careful of that. Even if he is pushing to play, you have to kind of save players from themselves sometimes and say, hey, Aaron, we got you, we're in it for the long haul. We don't want you to re-aggravate or hurt yourself any further. We're thinking about 2024. We got Zach Wilson, who hopefully by the end of the season is progressing to try to get us back into the playoffs.
I understand. We have to be realistic. So Aaron Rodgers returns. The Jets win the Super Bowl this year, and then they go back as title defenders in 2024. Mo, I couldn't have interpreted that any differently than the words that just came out of your mouth. I freaking love it, Mo. That's beautiful. One more YouTube super chat coming in here from Phil. Zach improving. Yeah, there's going to be, I will just admit this right from the get-go, that I'm in New Hampshire, and there's some carny music that's blasting off to the side of the block that opens up that my father got. So you guys are going to hear this weird-ass whatever music is happening here. What a way to end the show. That's beautiful. I'm not even really sure what that happens at the top of every hour. I don't, like some sort of radio, like I don't.
We could call it the Jets jingle.
That's it. The Jets jingle. A Victory Monday Jets jingle. And blessed be he. Blessed be he. Obviously. God bless. And we'll end on this. Phil saying Zach's improving, throwing screens, forcing it on offsides. And I tweeted it out yesterday, but I think there has been a little Aaron Rodgers ease to Zach Wilson's game, doing those weird Aaron Rodgers things. Yet he's not Aaron Rodgers, but it's been cool to see that kind of impact. Again, he was on the headset and the sideline yesterday. Mo, I appreciate you kicking off this bye week and the final notes and quotes of this Eagles game. Spectacular. And I'm sure we'll be checking in. And what is that? I think that's after the Chargers game. So it's got to be, or before Sunday Night Football. That's all I know. So it's coming up like 3 weeks or something. So we'll be checking back in soon, brother.
After the Chargers game, mid-November, Jets, Raiders.
Okay, there it is.
Hopefully both teams are still, on a roll by that time, because it'll make an interesting show for both of us. Talking
that it would. Some playoffs on the line, battling some action. Who knows? Who knows? Could be spicy. Well, Mo, you're one of the best in the business. Thanks, brother, and we'll chat again real soon, Mike.
Boy Green, appreciate you having me on this early morning.
Yes.
Shout out to Jets fans out there.
There it is, baby. It's Victory Monday. Yeah. Taking out the Eagles. No more undefeateds. Not up in here. Not up in here. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, for Boy Green Daily. Take care.